Azura Huthalith. The ridiculous name was lodged in my mind, festering like filth I couldn't scrub away. Who the hell was she to have dragged me through this forsaken forest? For what purpose? It had to be because of my rank, my nobility. But how? These vermin were nothing like normal people. If they were, I'd assumed they were after ransom. But they weren't normal people. Hardly people at all. Just animals playing at civilization. I could only guess what twisted game this Azura had in store. The Wielder. That's what they called her. Whatever that was supposed to mean. High Priestess of the Forbidden Temple and Matron of the Order of the Black Sun. Those were clear enough. Stupid and pretentious, but clear. But the Fate Breakers chosen? Honestly, what kind of moron who supposedly breaks fate would appoint a chosen one? Clearly these elves were out of their minds. Azura Huthalith. The Fate Breakers chosen, the Wielder. Wielder of what, exactly? Silly titles? The path grew muddier, sucking at my heels. Delara walked ahead, her long robes shifting with each step. The fabric clung to her hips in the slightest of movements, catching my eye despite myself. She moved with a calm grace. She didn't even flinch when I cried out as a horned toad darted past my leg. Only Ezra reacted. "Quit whining, princess." Her voice cut through the damp air, dripping with disdain. She was behind me, always watching. I could feel her gaze, sharp and crawling, like an insect, skittering up the back of my neck. Every time I dared glance back, those bulbous bug eyes glistened in the pale light of the mushrooms overhead. "If you're going to stand before the Wielder, you'll need more courage than that." I scoffed. "The Wielder of what?" "The Wielder of the Fang, of course." "The Fang? What, like a snake's tooth?" "The Fang of Zaraven." Ezra snapped, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "It was bestowed to her by Zaraven Doral himself, proof that she is in truth his chosen one." "Zaraven who?" The elf's expression darkened, her eyes narrowing to slits. She stepped closer, a sharp hiss escaping her lips. "How dare you?" she seethed. "You ignorant Firaze! You tread on sacred ground, and you don't even recognize the name of the gods." "Gods? I've spent enough time in cathedrals to know there's no one called Zaraven among the Lomea." "Zaraven Doral is not one of the so-called gods you people grovel to," Ezra hissed. "He is Abyssal, the Fate Breaker. Severer of chains, scourge of prophecy." "Whatever," I muttered, turning away from her. My gaze flicked to Delara, who had slowed her pace, looking back at us. "It is not whatever," Ezra snarled, grabbing my shoulder and yanking me back, her other hand gripping the hilt of her sword. "Ezra." Delara turned around. "Let go of her. Now." Ezra's grip tightened, her nails digging into my skin. I winced, but bit down on the pain, refusing to give her the satisfaction of hearing me cry out. She leaned closer, her bug eyes blazing with venom. "I say we kill her," she spat, her lips curling. "And tell Azura it was Set Harzlaki who did it." "No." Delara stepped between us, her voice calm and final. "Azura needs her alive." "Fine. But she doesn't need her unspoiled." "True, but..." "Come on, Lara. Don't be such a lapdog. Don't you want to find out what color little Lady Lavenhugel bleeds? I said, let go. For a tense moment, Ezra didn't move. Her fingers twitched, as if she was still deciding whether to rake her claws through my flesh or draw her sword. But then, with obvious reluctance, she let go. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. I had been right. They weren't planning to ransom me. If Azura didn't care whether I was unspoiled, then extorting father for money wasn't part of the plan. Every idiot with half a brain knew you didn't harm a noble hostage. Ezra glared at me, her gaze searing. Your lucky lot is here to save your hide, Firazi. No matter. I'll enjoy watching you squirm when you stand before the wielder. I straightened, mustering what little dignity I had left. I'm not afraid of some overblown priestess with a title. Perhaps you should be, Dalara said, cutting off Ezra before she could snap back. Come, we've wasted enough time. A chill ran through me as we resumed walking. The mud squelched beneath my feet, and the trees seemed to close in, dark and twisted. Above, the mushrooms pulsed faintly, casting shifting shadows across the sludgy path. Every breath tasted thick and rancid, like I was inhaling rot instead of air. By the gods, I needed a bath. Badly. Ash clogged every pore, and elf spit and blood still smeared my pretty face. I looked like a disaster. My hair hung in tangled, damp knots, plastered to my neck like a soggy rag. My shoes were caked in mud. And my dress, my beautiful dress, was ruined, soaked through, sticking to my skin, heavy with grime. It dragged up my legs with every step, making it feel like the ground itself was trying to swallow me. And my nails! Ugh! Each step felt like wading through a suffocating fog, my mind drifting between the dull ache in my body and the growing unease twisting tighter with every second. Azura, Huthalith, the fate breakers chosen, the wielder of the fang of... whatever. I had no idea what this evening had in store for me, only that it couldn't be good. It wasn't long before the forest opened, revealing a still, ink-black lake that lay glassy beneath the darkening sky. In the lake's center stood an island, its terraces stacked in grand plateaus that stretched towards the clouds. It was enough to make my brows rise, though I quickly smoothed my face. Couldn't let these elves see that the view of their house impressed me. 7 or 8 smaller islands zigzagged between the shore and the towering main island, connected by arched bridges. That must be how we'd get there, I assumed, though they seemed insignificant compared to the towering mass in the middle of the lake. Dalara turned her head slightly, not quite meeting my eyes, before looking back at the imposing structure looming on the island. Welcome to the Forbidden Temple. The houses perched on the edges of the terraces, their roofs arched, and curling at the edges like the talons of some ancient beast. The whole place looked as though it was sagging under the weight of centuries. Perhaps once it had been majestic, but now it felt tired. A shiver crept down my spine, not just from the sight of the Forbidden Temple itself, but from the thought of what awaited me there. Whoever this Azura Huthalith was, she certainly had a flair for the dramatic. Pavilions loomed on every rising terrace, their stone pillars worn smooth by centuries, and statues of coiled, wingless creatures crouched on the rooftops, watching with empty eyes. My gaze lingered on them, those hollow, ancient eyes, and my mind conjured images of long-forgotten rituals, of secrets buried deep within those walls. The air felt heavy, oppressive, as if though the island itself had been holding its breath for too long. A strange music drifted across the water, eerie and distant, plucked strings vibrating like whispers, while hollow flutes played melodies that spiraled upward before fading into the mist. Beneath it all, a low, pulsing rhythm echoed, like a heartbeat, deep within the earth, slow and relentless. The sound crawled along my skin. I hated to admit it, but the Forbidden Temple was an imposing sight. Yet, like Delara and Ezra themselves, it had clearly seen better days. Slimy algae climbed up the temple walls, as though the lake itself was trying to drag the entire complex back into its depths. Faded paint clung to the walls, and vines bound their way around wooden beams, threatening to pull the place back into the earth. The once proud gardens were now withered, blackened by decay. At the island's peak sat the grandest structure, its dark roofs tiered and massive, disappearing into the clouds. It loomed over everything, like a forgotten king surveying his crumbling domain. "That is Azura's sanctum," Delara said, and pointed. Her voice hushed, as though speaking too loudly would wake something best left asleep. "Encircled by 3 gardens. Our Lady spends her evenings in the Forsaken Garden, meditating on the lessons of Legina." Legina. The name tugged at the edges of my memory. Distant, but persistent. Sheena, Lehesh, Helisha. Wasn't she one of the ancient Demora? A demon from beyond the veil? Something twisted within my chest. Yes, that was it. Helisha, the Mind Eater. Worshipped by the mad witches of No Man's Land, if the rumors were true. A fiend in the eyes of the Imperial Inquisition. My stomach tightened. I had already realized that the Ash Elves worshipped gods unrecognized by the Lomian Church of the Empire. That was bad enough. But if they worshipped Demora... I swallowed and traced a 7-pointed star over my chest. The oppressive silence of the Forbidden Temple pressed down on me. Even the music seemed to come from far away, as if played by distant ghosts. I felt small beneath its shadow. No, not small. Out of place. I hesitated. Delara had already begun to move ahead, and for a brief moment I thought of turning back. Maybe I should just leg it into the woods. How hard could it be to escape this place? But then Ezra's hand slammed into my back, sending me stumbling forward. "Move it, princess," she spat. "Or should I drag you by the hair?" "Thought you didn't want me here," I nearly said. But instead I simply shot a glare over my shoulder. Ezra's eyes gleamed, daring me to say something. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I gritted my teeth, steadying myself, and turned back towards the vast temple complex that stood from the lake. There was no turning back. No escape. My only hope now was that this wielder of theirs would show me more respect than the others had. Yes, there was hope. This Azura was the leader, after all. Surely I could try and appeal to her sense of authority, maybe even make her regret this entire ordeal and understand that a noble such as myself should never have been bound and gagged. that I didn't belong in this place. We crossed the arch bridges in silence, moving from one small island to the next. The stone clacked underfoot. Each step brought us closer to the towering mass of the main island in the middle of the lake. The sun, slipping lower in the sky, leaked thin rays of gold through the black clouds, the lurid light spilling across the ink-black water separating these islands from the surrounding Vailswood. The closer we got to the main isle, the more dismal it all appeared. Elves, males with ungainly, oversized hats, were unloading fish from boats, hauling nets full of writhing, glistening bodies up onto the shore. The strong scent of raw fish hit me, clinging to the dampness in the air. We stepped onto the lowest tier of the main island, where I noticed something unexpected. Between the willow trees were tables, benches and chairs, scattered in what could only be described as disarray. Male elves darted back and forth, hauling barrels of meat and fish. Some of the meat looked recently slaughtered, but other cuts seemed wrong, dark, discolored. Could they not tell the difference? My stomach twisted as I passed one elf carrying something that looked like a pile of enormous, gnarled mushrooms, their caps oozing some kind of liquid. Another elf carried what appeared to be a barrel of squids, the top layer slick and shimmering, but below there was something faintly off, a whiff of decay lurking like an uninvited guest at a party. The air was thick with steam, billowing from chimneys and leaking from the cracks of the crude wooden huts near the water's edge. I couldn't see inside, but I could hear the hissing of something boiling. Whatever it was, it smelled positively foul, as if they were steaming something not meant to be eaten. My stomach turned. Were they cooking bugs? Giant insects? I slowed, frowning at the scene around me. The smell was revolting. Rotting meat and fish, mixed with the pungent odor of mushrooms. Ugh, a far cry from the refined kitchens of home. Was this some kind of sick celebration? Why? Surely not for my sake. My gaze swept over the chaotic scene before me, but no one seemed to pay me any attention. I hurried my pace to catch up with Delara. What is all this? I asked, careful to keep my voice steady. Are they preparing for something? She didn't break her stride. You'll have your answers when you meet Azura. Frustration bubbled inside me. They were keeping me in the dark. I deserved better than this. Whatever was going on here, I wasn't going to understand it until I stood before their leader.